The alien woman. The starship Aurora Dawn floated like a silver arrow across the endless black sea of space. Inside, the passenger cabin was full of different beings from many worlds. There were tall insectoid traders with glassy wings. There were short, furry miners from the asteroid colonies. There were lizard-skinned warriors with heavy armor strapped across their chests. And there were humans, too, speaking in soft voices, trying to look calm as the ship carried them toward the shining hub world called Centra Prime. In the middle of all these travelers sat one figure who drew every eye but received no kindness. She was an alien woman, tall and thin, her skin grayish-green with patches of rough texture like stone. Her large eyes were yellow, glowing faintly in the dim cabin lights. Her nose was flat, her mouth wide, and scars ran across her jaw like cracks on old rock. Her clothes were plain, a dark cloak that hid her shape, but no cloak could hide her strangeness. No cloak could hide the way people looked at her. Nobody wanted to sit near her. 2 seats on her left and right were empty while all other rows were crowded. Passengers shuffled away, whispering sharp words in languages she understood. Ugly, dangerous, cursed. These words floated around her. The alien woman kept her head, low, staring at her own hands with long fingers that bent at odd angles. Her nails were sharp, not by choice but by birth, and when she tried to cover them, the cloak only made her look more suspicious. Children peeked from behind their parents' arms and asked who she was. Parents pulled them back quickly and told them not to stare. One miner even requested to change his seat after finding himself 2 rows behind her. The crew pretended not to notice, but they noticed. Everyone noticed. The alien woman had grown used to such treatment. For many years she had walked through spaceports alone. She had waited in long lines where others stepped aside to avoid brushing against her. She had sat in crowded halls where no one sat near. Her reflection in polished metal always reminded her of the same thing. She did not belong, and yet she traveled, always traveling, always searching. Something pulled her from one world to the next, something too deep to explain. On this journey, her destination was Centra Prime, the hub world where every species gathered, where trade flowed like rivers. To others, it was a place of riches and new chances. To her, it was a place of answers. She carried a secret hidden close to her chest, wrapped under her cloak. A secret that could not be seen by the passengers who avoided her gaze. Sometimes, she touched it gently, almost like a mother touching a child. Her eyes softened, and for a moment the scars on her face seemed less cruel. Still, loneliness pressed on her like gravity. The whispers in the cabin pressed harder than the straps of her seatbelt. Every laugh from another traveler felt like a wall pushing her farther away. She closed her eyes and tried to imagine home. But home was gone, burned long ago in a war that no one remembered. Her people scattered, her family buried in the dust of a ruined planet. Only she remained wandering, carrying what others feared to understand. Outside the window, stars drifted like frozen sparks. The engines hummed a steady rhythm. The journey would last hours, maybe days, depending on the warp. Currents, to most passengers, it was nothing more than a boring wait. To her, it was another trial of silence. Silence broken only by cruel whispers, by the shuffling of feet that avoided her space. She lifted her head once, her yellow eyes sweeping the cabin. Every gaze that met hers turned away quickly. No one wanted to look too long. No one wanted to admit fear, but fear lived in their eyes, sharp and unhidden. She sighed, a soft breath that carried years of weight. If only they knew the truth, she thought. If only they could see beyond the scars and the strange skin. If only they understood that ugliness was not the same as danger. But she did not speak. Not yet. It was easier to remain silent, easier to let them think what they wanted. A young human boy across the aisle dropped his toy. The round device rolled near her foot. She bent slowly, picked it up with her long fingers. For a second the boy smiled when she handed it back, but his mother snatched him close and glared. The smile vanished. The alien woman felt a stab of pain sharper than any blade. It was not the first time kindness had been stolen from her. She looked away, her heart sinking. The engines hummed louder as the ship shifted into faster warp. Lights flickered, shadows, stretched across the cabin. The alien woman closed her eyes again. She whispered in her own language, a quiet chant of comfort. She told herself to endure, to wait, to be patient, but deep inside she wondered, would she always be alone? Would she always be the ugly one, the unwanted one? Or would there be a day when someone saw her not with fear, but with courage, with respect, with kindness? And as she sat there in silence, the seat beside her still empty, the universe moved closer to giving her an answer. The empty seat. The ship's cabin grew louder as more passengers entered. Doors opened and closed, footsteps echoed, voices filled the air, but through all the noise, one thing stayed the same. The seat beside the alien woman remained empty. It was strange, almost unnatural. Every other row was crowded, with people pressed shoulder to shoulder. Some sat uncomfortably close to strangers, yet nobody, not a single being, dared to sit in that empty seat. It was as if the space itself carried a curse, as if an invisible wall kept them away. The alien woman lowered her head. She felt their eyes on her like burning lights. The stares were heavy, sharp, filled with silent judgment. Whispers floated around her like poison. "Don't sit there," one passenger hissed to another. "She is dangerous," another muttered. Some said it openly, not caring if she heard. "She looks like she carries disease. She smells of death. She doesn't belong among us." Her scarred lips pressed tightly together. She wanted to speak, to tell them they were wrong, but words caught in her throat. She had tried before, many times, and every time the result was the same: more fear, more cruelty, more isolation. The ship's loudspeaker called out seat numbers. Crew members directed passengers, pointing them to rows. Every time someone walked near her, the entire cabin seemed to pause. Would they take the empty seat? Would they dare? But no, they always turned away. Some pretended to search for another seat. Some begged to be moved elsewhere. One lizard warrior even laughed. "I would rather stand than sit beside that thing." The words pierced her chest. Like knives, she clenched her hands under the cloak. Her long fingers dug into her palms until the skin cracked. Pain was easier to feel than shame. And yet, beneath the shame, something else stirred. A spark. Faint but dangerous. She could feel it humming deep inside her. A reminder of what she carried under her cloak, of what she could unleash if pushed too far. Still, she kept control. She whispered in her own tongue, "Not here, not now, wait." Her people had taught her patience, but her people were gone, and patience had grown thin. The empty seat became more than just a chair. It became a symbol, a mark of her exile, a silent reminder that even among hundreds of travelers, she was alone. A small group of humans nearby whispered together. One of them, a man with a cybernetic arm, leaned forward. "She's one of the survivors, isn't she?" he said quietly. His companion frowned. "Survivor of what?" The man's mechanical fingers tapped the armrest nervously. "Of that war," he muttered. "The one no one speaks about, the one erased from records." The words sent a chill through the listeners. They glanced at the alien woman with new fear, but none of them dared to ask her directly. The ship trembled as it entered deeper warp. Lights flickered for a second, a child cried, and a mother hushed him. The alien woman kept her eyes closed. She could feel something in the void, something moving. Her kind had senses beyond others. She felt danger like a shadow waiting ahead. But she said nothing. Who would believe her? They thought she was ugly, cursed, unwanted. Why would they listen to her warning? The crew passed by, checking seatbelts. One young attendant slowed near her. For a brief moment their eyes met. The attendant hesitated, almost spoke, then hurried away. Fear was stronger than compassion, always stronger, until it was too late. More passengers squeezed in. The cabin grew hotter, crowded, restless, but still her seat remained untouched. Passengers leaned into the aisle rather than sit beside her. One man even held his bag tightly to his chest and glared at her as if she might steal it. She turned away, her chest heavy. Loneliness was one thing, but this was humiliation, the kind that sank into your bones and never left. She touched the hidden object beneath her cloak. It pulsed faintly, like a living heart. Her secret, her burden, her weapon, she whispered to it softly. They don't understand, but soon they will. Her voice was low, a promise and a warning. The secret stirred in answer, faint energy flowing through her fingertips. It wanted to be released. It wanted to be seen, but she kept it still because she knew once it was revealed nothing would ever be the same. The cabin doors slid open once more. A final passenger hurried inside. He was human, tall, with sharp eyes that scanned the room quickly. The crew guided him forward. Every seat was full, every row packed. Only one seat remained, the one beside the alien woman. The cabin hushed. Every gaze turned to him. Would he refuse? Would he demand another place? The alien woman's heart thudded in her chest. She waited, braced for rejection, but the human kept walking, step by step. He drew closer, until he stopped at the empty seat. The whispers grew louder. No, not there. She will curse you. She will kill you in your sleep. But the human smiled. And for the first time in years, the alien woman saw no fear in someone's eyes. The human arrival. The cabin grew quiet as the last human entered. His boots clicked against the metal floor, steady and calm. Every eye turned to him following his steps. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a simple travel bag slung over his back. His face carried the tired look of someone who had seen many journeys. But his eyes were sharp, alive, scanning the cabin with quick precision. The crew member guiding him pointed. "Seat 37 Bravo," she said, her voice uncertain. Everyone knew what that meant. The empty seat, the cursed seat, the one beside the alien woman. Whispers spread like fire. Poor fool. Someone muttered, "He doesn't know," another said. The human glanced at the voices but didn't slow. He saw the empty space and the strange figure beside it. The alien woman sat rigid, cloak pulled close. Her yellow eyes lifted, waiting for the rejection she had known all her life. The human stopped. For a moment, the entire cabin seemed to hold its breath. Would he refuse? Would he demand another seat? Would he laugh like the others? But instead, he smiled. It was a small smile. Not mocking, not cruel. A smile of simple respect. He nodded politely to her. Then he sat down, placing his bag under the seat, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. The alien woman blinked. In disbelief, her heart stuttered in her chest, her scars burned as if the attention of the entire cabin pressed against her. Passengers gasped. Some shook their heads. One miner muttered, "He must be crazy." Another hissed, "Humans, always reckless." But the human ignored them. He adjusted his seatbelt, leaned back and exhaled as though relieved. Then he turned his head slightly toward her. "Hello," he said softly. The word was simple, but it carried a weight she had not felt in years. He had spoken to her, not at her, not about her, but to her. She hesitated, her throat dry, her voice cracked when she whispered back, "Hello." For the first time in a long time, someone had spoken to her without fear. For the first time, she felt like she was not invisible. The silence that followed was different. Not the silence of rejection, but the silence of possibility. Passengers shifted in their seats, uncomfortable. Some stared openly, others whispered behind hands. The human noticed but didn't care. He leaned closer, his voice calm but curious. "Where are you headed?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered quietly, "Centra Prime." He nodded. "Me too." Simple words yet powerful, because in that moment the gap between two worlds began to shrink. The alien woman studied him carefully. Why was he different? Why did he not recoil from her scars? Why did his eyes hold no disgust? Instead, she saw something else. Curiosity, respect, maybe even courage. He noticed her cloak and the way she guarded it. He didn't ask, not yet. but his instincts told him there was more to her story. He had fought in wars crossed hostile space. He recognized the look of someone carrying a burden, and hers was heavier than most. The cabin grew darker as the ship moved deeper into warp. Lights dimmed, engines rumbled. A storm of cosmic energy flickered outside the windows. Passengers tried to sleep, but tension lingered. Everyone still glanced toward the strange pair in row 37, the unwanted alien, and the human who dared to sit beside her. The alien woman lowered her voice. "You are not afraid of me?" she asked. It was not a question, but a statement filled with disbelief. The human tilted his head. "Should I be?" he replied calmly. Her yellow eyes widened. She had no answer. No one had ever asked her that before. He smiled again, a quiet smile that reached his eyes. "I've seen monsters," he said. "You are not one of them." His words cut through her like light in darkness. Her scars, her ugliness, her loneliness, none of it mattered in that instant. For the first time, someone had seen her as more than a creature to be avoided. He saw her as a person, but deep inside her, the secret under her cloak pulsed harder, as if it sensed the human's courage, as if it wanted to reveal itself. She pressed her hand against it, whispering silently, "Not yet. Not yet." Because she knew once her truth was shown, this human might turn away, and she feared that loss more than the hatred of the others. The ship shuddered suddenly. A violent shake rattled the cabin. Passengers gasped, alarms flickered red. A voice crackled over the intercom. "Warning! Unidentified vessels approaching!" Fear spread instantly. Panic rose like a wave. The alien woman's eyes narrowed. She felt it, the danger she had sensed before. It had arrived, and this time, she would not be able to remain silent. She turned slowly toward the human, her yellow eyes glowing brighter. "Stay close to me," she whispered. Her voice was calm, but carried a sharp edge. The human frowned, confused, but in her tone he felt power, something hidden, something dangerous, and he realized in that moment. Sitting beside her was not a mistake, it was fate. Strange conversation. The ship trembled again as the warning lights flickered. Passengers gripped their seats, fear thick in the air. But in row 37, the human leaned closer to the alien woman. Her yellow eyes glowed faintly in the dim, red light. The sound of alarms echoed around them, but their small world shrank into silence. She turned her face toward him, scars visible in the shifting glow. "You should not have sat here," she whispered. Her voice was soft but heavy. The human raised an eyebrow, calm even as fear spread through the cabin. "And yet I did," he replied. "Why?" she asked. Her tone carried years of disbelief. The human shrugged. "Because you looked alone." The word struck her harder than any insult. Alone. Yes, she had been alone for longer than most could imagine. Her people scattered, her world burned, her name forgotten. But this human had seen it in her eyes within minutes. He had spoken, the truth she carried in silence. The alarms cut off, replaced by the steady hum of engines. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Passengers remained calm, no danger confirmed. Vessels identified but not hostile. Relief washed through the cabin. Laughter, nervous chatter, sighs of escape. But the alien woman remained still, her eyes fixed on the void outside. She knew better. Danger did not leave so easily. The human noticed her tension. "You don't believe the captain," he said quietly. She shook her head. "They are wrong," she whispered. "They always are." The human leaned closer, voice low. "Then what do you see?" For a moment she did not answer. Her long fingers tightened around the hidden object beneath her cloak. The secret pulsed warm against her skin. Finally she spoke, her words like fragments of shadow. "I see hunters." The human frowned. "Hunters?" She nodded, her yellow eyes unblinking. "They follow. They wait. They never stop." Her voice shook with memory, not fear, for she had faced them before. The human studied her carefully. He had heard many stories in the war zones. Stories of creatures that moved silently between stars. Stories that governments denied. Stories erased from records. And now here sat a woman who spoke of them as fact. He knew she was not lying. He had seen the truth in too many haunted eyes before. She turned back to him. "You should move," she whispered. "You should not sit beside me." Her words were not bitter, they were warning. The human tilted his head. "Why?" She hesitated, her hand pressing harder against her cloak. "Because I carry something they want." Her voice was low, sharp, dangerous. Something alive stirred beneath her words. The human did not move. He did not flinch. Instead, he leaned back in his seat and folded his arms. "Then I'll stay," he said simply. Her eyes widened, glowing brighter for an instant. "Do you not understand?" she hissed. "They will kill you." "Maybe," he replied calmly. "But I don't run from shadows." Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not with bravery, not with calm, not with choice. Most turned away the moment they saw her face. This human had seen more than her face. He had seen her burden, and yet he stayed. The ship's lights returned to normal. Passengers slowly relaxed, but whispers still circled like flies. Why? Is he talking to her? Doesn't he know what she is? He won't survive long. But the human ignored them all. He kept his eyes on the alien woman, and for the first time in many journeys, she felt something she thought was lost, forever. Hope. She lowered her voice, almost a confession. "You are different," she whispered. The human smiled faintly. "So are you." Her heart twisted. Different. That word had always been a curse to her, but from his lips it sounded like something else, something close to respect. Her hands trembled as she loosened her cloak slightly. For the first time, she revealed a glimpse of what she carried. The human's eyes narrowed as he saw the faint glow beneath the fabric. It pulsed like a heartbeat, alive with strange energy. "What is it?" he asked. She closed the cloak quickly. "Not yet," she whispered. "Soon you will see." The tension between them thickened. Passengers still stared, but none dared to interrupt. The ship felt heavier, as if space itself pressed down upon it. The human leaned closer again, his voice steady. "Whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone." Her breath shivered in her chest. No one had ever spoken such words to her before. For a moment, she almost believed him. Then the ship shuddered violently. This time, alarms blared louder. Red lights flared across the cabin. The captain's voice cracked with fear. "Warning! Unidentified vessels approaching fast. Shields up!" Passengers screamed. Chaos erupted. The alien woman's eyes snapped open, glowing like molten fire. She turned to the human with a voice that shook like thunder. "They have found me." The attack. The cabin erupted in chaos as the ship shook violently. Passengers screamed, some unbuckling their belts in panic, others clutching the armrests until their knuckles turned white. Children cried, crew members shouted orders, but fear drowned their voices. Outside the windows, shadows moved against the stars, fast and sharp like predators circling prey. The alien woman's eyes burned like molten gold. She felt it before anyone else. A dark vibration through the walls, a pulse in the void. "They are here," she whispered. Her voice was low but heavy, carrying more weight than the alarms. The human turned to her, steady even as the cabin trembled. "Who?" he asked. Her gaze never left the window. "The hunters." A thunderous impact slammed against the ship's hull. The lights flickered, sparks fell from ceiling panels, and the engines roared as the pilot tried to break free. Through the windows, the enemy vessels appeared, sleek black ships shaped like blades, moving with unnatural speed. They were not pirates, not raiders. They were something worse. They were hunters, designed to chase, designed to capture, designed to kill. Passengers cried out, "Pirates! Help us!" But the alien woman shook her head slowly. "No, not pirates," she said. "Something far more dangerous." Her voice cut through the panic like a blade. The human leaned closer, his eyes locked on hers. "Tell me what they want." She touched her cloak, the glow beneath it pulsing. "Faster now." "They want this," she whispered, "and they will destroy everyone to get it." The ship jolted as magnetic clamps slammed against the hull. The hunters were attaching, pulling the vessel into their grasp. Alarms screamed, passengers fell to the floor as gravity shifted. The crew tried to fight, shouting into comms, but their voices broke into static. The hunters were jamming the signals, cutting them off from all hope of rescue. The alien woman rose slowly from her seat, her tall frame looming above the terrified passengers. Her cloak slipped, revealing more of the strange light beneath it. Gasps filled the cabin, whispers turned to shouts. "She's carrying something. She brought this on us. She's the reason they came." Some tried to rush away as if distance could save them, but the hunters were already boarding and there was nowhere to run. The human stood too, stepping between her and the angry passengers. "Stop!" he barked, his voice sharp. "She's not your enemy." But fear blinded them. They shoved, shouted, pointed at her like she was the monster. The alien woman lowered her head. "This is why I travel alone," she whispered. A loud hiss echoed through the cabin as the airlock doors groaned. Then the hunters stepped inside, tall figures in black armor, faceless helmets reflecting the red emergency lights. They moved, with cold precision, not rushing, not stumbling. Predators who knew they already controlled the hunt. The passengers fell silent, terror freezing their screams. The hunters scanned the cabin, their weapons glowing with strange energy. One of them spoke, its voice metallic and cruel. "Give us the carrier and the rest may live." All eyes turned to the alien woman. She stood unmoving, her scars lit by the pulsing glow beneath her cloak. She whispered to herself in her own tongue, a prayer, a promise, a memory of her lost people. The human clenched his fists, his body tense. He stepped forward before anyone else could speak. "No one here is your prey," he said firmly. The hunters tilted their heads, their weapons locking on him. "You would die for her," they hissed. "Yes," he answered, without hesitation. The alien woman's chest tightened. No one had ever stood for her before. For years she had carried her burden alone. And now this human, this stranger, was willing to risk everything. The secret beneath her cloak pulsed harder, responding to his courage. It demanded release. The hunters raised their weapons. The passengers cowered. The human braced for impact, and then the alien woman spread her arms wide. Her cloak tore apart. Light burst out, flooding the cabin with a blinding glow. Gasps filled the air as the truth was revealed. She was not just an alien woman with scars and strange skin. She was the last guardian of an ancient core, a living source of energy that her people had died to protect. The hunters wanted it, but it was bonded to her. Her body was both prison and protector of its power. The hunters recoiled, their visors flashing. They had not expected her to reveal it so. Soon the passengers shielded their eyes, some crying, some whispering prayers. The human did not look away. He stared at her, not with fear, but with awe. In that moment he understood why they chased her across the stars. He understood why she had always been alone. And he understood that sitting beside her had changed everything. Her voice thundered across the cabin. "You want me?" she said. "Then face me." The core within her chest pulsed brighter. The hunters raised their weapons again, but the air around her shimmered with unseen force, a shield born of light and willpower. Passengers gasped as bolts of energy slammed against it, scattering like sparks. She stood tall, unbroken. For the first time, they saw her not as ugly, not as cursed, but as something far more powerful. The human stepped closer. To her side, his voice steady. "Then let's fight together." The secret revealed. The cabin shook as the hunters fired again. Blasts of blue energy slammed into the shimmering shield that surrounded the alien woman. Each strike lit the cabin like lightning, sending shadows crawling across the terrified faces of passengers. Yet the shield held, a sphere of golden light, that rippled but never broke. The hunters paused, their faceless helmets tilting. They had expected fear. They had expected surrender. Instead, they found resistance. And not just resistance. Power, ancient and alive. The alien woman stood tall in the center of the glow, her scars illuminated like glowing marks of battle. For the first time, the whispers of the passengers stopped. For the first time, they saw her not as something ugly or cursed. They saw her as something magnificent, something dangerous, something untamed. The human stood at her side, the light reflecting in his determined eyes. He looked at the hunters and then at her. "What is it?" he asked, his voice calm even in chaos. Her hand pressed against her chest where the energy core pulsed. "It is the heart of my people," she whispered. Her voice carried both sorrow and pride, the last relic of a world destroyed. The human's eyes narrowed. "They want it," he said. She nodded, her yellow gaze fierce. "They want it because it can bend stars, because it can open paths, even empires fear to tread." Her breath shook, but she did not falter, and because it will only answer to one who is willing to protect others before themselves. The hunters stepped forward, their weapons humming. One spoke, its metallic voice dripping with hunger. "The core belongs to us." The alien woman's shield pulsed brighter. "It belongs to no one," she thundered. "It belongs to those who sacrifice, not those who hunt." Passengers cowered, pressed against the walls. Some whispered prayers. Others cried. But one thing had changed. Their hatred was gone, replaced by awe. The ugly alien woman they had mocked now stood as their only defense. The human clenched his fists. He had fought battles before. He had seen weapons of war, but never had he stood beside something like this. He glanced at her, his voice low, steady. "Tell me what to do." Her eyes softened for a brief second. She had never heard those words from anyone. All her life, people avoided her, feared her, cursed her. Now here was someone asking to stand with her. Not behind, not away. Beside. The hunters raised their weapons again. The human moved in front of her, shielding her with his own body, even though her shield already protected them both. She gasped, "What are you doing?" His voice was firm, unshaken. "I will not let them take you." The hunters fired. Energy slammed against the shield, sparks scattering like fireworks. The human did not flinch, and the core inside her pulsed harder, brighter. It responded not to fear, not to hatred, but to courage. It spread its light into her veins, strengthening her, making her more than flesh and scars. The glow expanded, pushing outward. The hunters staggered as the force pressed them back. One tried to resist, slamming its weapon into the shield. But the energy surged, shattering its armor with a burst of light. The creature collapsed, smoke rising from its broken form. Passengers gasped, their fear mixing with hope. The hunters were not invincible. The alien woman raised her hand, the shield flowing into a sharp arc of golden light. She struck again, slicing through another hunter's weapon, sending it clattering to the floor. The human grabbed the fallen weapon without hesitation. Though alien in design, his hands moved with the instinct of a soldier. He fired, the blast tearing into a hunter's chest. The creature fell, its armor sparking, the cabin roared with battle. Screams, gunfire, light flashing like storms. The alien woman moved like a force of nature. Every step she took carried the weight of her people. Every strike of her glowing shield carried centuries of loss and vengeance, and through it all the human stayed with her, not afraid, not retreating, his courage feeding her strength protecting his life. Together they became something the hunters had not expected. Together they became unstoppable. One hunter hissed, its voice rising in fury. "You cannot protect them all." The alien woman's eyes blazed. "Watch me," she replied. The core pulsed one final time, exploding outward with a shockwave of golden light. The blast threw the hunters back into the airlock, tearing them from the cabin. The doors slammed shut with a deafening crash, sealing the enemy outside. Silence fell, broken only by the heavy breaths of the survivors. Passengers slowly lifted their heads. They stared at the alien woman and the human beside her, the ones who had stood when all others cowered, the ones who had saved them. The human lowered his borrowed weapon. His chest rose and fell, but his eyes never left her. "You're not alone anymore," he said, his voice steady. Her scars glistened in the fading light, her face a storm of sorrow and relief. She whispered, almost too soft to hear, "For the first time, I believe you." Respect earned. The cabin was silent after the battle. The smell of burnt metal and ozone lingered in the air. Passengers clung to their seats, trembling, their wide eyes fixed on the alien woman. Moments ago, they had called her cursed, ugly, unwanted. Now they saw her bathed in golden light, her scars glowing like symbols of survival. No one dared whisper insults anymore. No one dared look away. She stood tall, her breathing heavy, her cloak torn apart. The core inside her chest dimmed slowly, its furious glow settling into a steady pulse. It was not gone, only resting, waiting. She lowered her arms, the shield fading. For the first time in years, her body felt light. Not because the burden was gone, but because she had shared it. She had not faced the hunters alone. The human had stayed, and that changed everything. The passengers began to stir. A miner who had mocked her earlier now whispered, "She saved us." A mother who had pulled her child away now held him close, murmuring, "She's a protector." Even the lizard warrior who once laughed at her bowed his head low. Respect replaced cruelty. Gratitude replaced fear. But the alien woman did not bask in their stares. Her eyes were fixed only on the human beside her. He was still standing, weapon in hand, his chest rising and falling with slow breaths. He looked at her scars, her glowing chest, her yellow eyes, and he did not flinch. Instead, he nodded once, as if acknowledging not just her strength, but her truth. The captain's voice broke over the comms, shaky and uncertain. Hunters repelled, shields stabilizing, passengers safe. The words meant survival, but they did not mean safety, because she knew the hunters would return. They always returned. But something had changed tonight. For the first time, she was not the only one ready to face them. The human holstered the alien weapon and turned to her. "You've been running for a long time," he said. Her eyes dropped, her scars catching the soft cabin light. "Yes," she whispered. "All my life." "Then maybe it's time you stop running," he replied, his tone firm but kind. She stared at him, unsure if she should laugh or weep. Stop running. Could it be that simple? No one had ever spoken those words to her before, and for a moment, she allowed herself to imagine it. A life where she was not hunted, not hated, not alone. The passengers began to gather courage. One stepped forward, then another. Voices rose, trembling but sincere. "Thank you," someone whispered. "You saved my family," another said. "You are not cursed. You are blessed," murmured a third. The alien woman lowered her head, her chest heavy with unfamiliar emotion. Respect. It felt strange, almost painful after years of rejection, but it was real. They meant it. Her yellow eyes glistened as she looked at them. "I am not what you think," she whispered. "I am not beautiful. I am not kind. I am not safe." Her voice cracked, the scars across her lips trembling. "But I will protect," she said, her voice rising like thunder. "I will protect anyone who stands with me, no matter how they see me." The passengers bowed their heads. For the first time, no one looked away from her scars. For the first time, they looked past them. The ship steadied as the engines roared back to life. The hunters had been thrown into the void, but the threat lingered like a shadow on the horizon. Still, the cabin felt different, lighter, stronger, united, because one woman had chosen to reveal her truth, and one human had chosen to sit beside her. The human turned to her, his voice low but certain. "Wherever this fight takes you, you won't face it alone." Her chest ached, the core inside her pulsing warmly in agreement. For the first time since her world was destroyed, she believed it. She believed she was not alone. She looked at him, her yellow eyes glowing softly. "You are different," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "So are you." The passengers around them watched in silence, not with fear, but with respect. And though the scars on her face had not vanished, though the whispers of the past could never be erased, she felt something she had not felt in years. A place, a purpose, a connection. The ugly alien woman, once abandoned and mocked, now stood as their guardian, and beside her stood the human who had changed everything. Together, they would face the hunters again. Together, they would face whatever the stars dared to send. And in the silence that followed, every soul in the cabin knew one truth. They were alive not because of luck, but because one human had chosen kindness, and because one alien had chosen courage. The ship sailed onward through the void, carrying not just passengers but the beginning of a legend.